welcome back, everybody, to our new episode on today's podcast. We wanted to do something different today. Today is more about truth telling. You tell me if I'm right.
Oh
Truth
yeah,
telling, comfortable realities. Most brands would not at least voluntarily want to talk about it. And today is a little bit more about ethics, systems, and accountability. So it's beyond aesthetics. Yeah.
that is absolutely correct. Maybe we should introduce ourselves to the new people that, having come in here for the first time. Welcome to all of you. My name is Tafreed Butt. I'm the founder of ZÁY SHEEN, a sustainable fashion brand based in New York City. And right there, we have our lovely um, host. So now, thank you so much, Izzy. Lovely to have you here. It's a pleasure to, do another podcast episode with you. We had a lot of fun. And I really much happy to see, the podcast when we uploaded on our social media channels, we got a lot of positive response. So it's very great to see how people respond to that. And yeah, that's why we're here because people loves it. So I'm very glad to that. We'll be talking about the beyond the threats that fashion industry's unspoken truths. There's a lot of things that I know people know happening in the fast fashion that we need to be talking about, and we should be aware of it and try to make small changes in our daily life to get better each day.
Yep.
Exactly. So I was actually before the podcast, I was doing my research, and since the last time we spoke together, there are things that have been changed in the fast fashion. Since our last conversation, the fashion landscape has seen significant shifts. Fast fashion continues to grow, projected to reach $163.21 billion in 2025. So
That's
that's a
kind of like a lot.
yeah, that's kind of a
It's
growth.
kind of like so difficult to think about, even
Yeah,
because this number
that's
is like so ridiculously high.
still in 2025 where everybody is going for sustainable fashion. The fast fashion still grows. So, but we need to work on this and try to even the big brands, they're not trying to get into the sustainable thing. But the fast fashion we need to be working on because we see a lot of social media trends. They have, their big hand in it. A lot of influencer when they promote the fast fashion or changing trends, they're changing the colors and the dresses. I believe that's the thing that, people see and people want to try, people buy the things. And that makes, it more messy, more when they don't wear it again after the trend ends, it goes back to their wardrobe or even some people throw it out to the landfills. Exactly, that's what's happening right now.
I want to get to your point on, what can we do and what has been maybe changed since the last episode what we had. And it was actually one very significant change, which you haven't mentioned yet, but I think it's too important to ignore even. A lot of people complained about, and I get that, like, but the thing is, the truth is for Shein and Temu, especially because they're from China.
Hmm.
Let's talk about tariffs for a minute. Because actually, in the first time, you're completely right that like fast fashion is thriving, a lot of people and da 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 da. But the thing is, they actually had lesser imports to America, right? Because they had to pay more. People had to pay more. It was the first time ever where they had actually a significant reduction in orders. So, with all of, the questions and like people being like upset on the tariffs and all of like, I don't want to question like the strategy or anything, but just the simple fact that, it hit Temu and Shein so hard. There's
Yeah,
actually something we should also not ignore. Not applauding at that very moment, but I just wanted to point it out that
exactly.
there has never been something like that where they actually were hit like that, right?
Mm,
So we'll have to see how obviously that will, if people's mindsets or if people's consumption habits. I'm not so sure about, right? But if people are like really used to shopping I'm saying something, right? Every week at Shein or Temu, or being like, and even like there's another thing which comes to mind now. But like if, for example, with the tariffs, like where do they go now, right? If that had an ongoing effect, then they would also maybe be like somewhere more local, or maybe they could also, of course, turn to Zara and H&M and what have you not, right? But it will be for sure more expensive, right? Because
Yeah,
like there is no lower level than Shein or Temu, right?
exactly. Before I start to say anything, first of all, I wanted to thank our president, Donald J. Trump, for doing this. And yeah, it's first time in the history that, these companies got a significant
It's a fact. I mean, you
increase
can't.
in their order to the US because we are a big market. And
Yes.
that's definitely helps boost the local markets here and the local artisans. I was actually looking, and as you know, I mentioned before, I'm in Queens right now. I see the local markets, and I met a few artisans here, and they were mentioning to me after that, yeah, there are some people, things got, a bit expensive, but I think it's a part of the thing. I don't know much about it because it's upper level thing, I believe. So, but yeah, things are getting better, and it's gonna be boost in the local market in the US, and especially when I see a sustainable brand, or especially the handmade things here, it's made in US. So that makes me very, happy and proud to be in this and what they're making. So yeah, that kind of a thing. But I heard that they're making the tariff, so it's gonna be maybe back where we was.
Well, but for sure, I'm guessing. But there's another fun fact I wanted to mention. So,
Mhm.
have you ever heard that, like in the past, that is like maybe a year old or so, Shein and Temu parcels on average per day in the US is 1 million. Not talking about any returns. Obviously, that's like an old figure, and I have to figure out where I got that from. There's a few articles where I wrote that, where I heard that from, but that's crazy. But yeah, anyways.
Exactly. So 1 million garment every day to the US market. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, they're making big profits. And now I'm gonna come on our topic, the
Yeah.
beyond the threats that we mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned there are more than 1 million packages a day, we come to the point of the exploitation of the workers and ethics, because
Mhm.
they're selling the things. Of course, they're selling cheap, but they're making it for more cheaper. And they're still making a lot of profits because they're selling with the big quantity. And because they order for bigger quantity, they get lots of cheaper prices. And so worker exploitations remain a pressing issue still.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about it. What's going
Well,
on, and
that's a that
practices to do better, and the things we need to be working on globally.
it's always easier to work on something if you make it public and pressing, to your point.
Yeah.
The things you talk about are very important things, but they're kept under the radar for very good reasons of the brands who stand in front of that, right?
Yeah.
Like the Sheins or like the Temus or whoever, right? So the unseen reality of, you're holding up a t-shirt for $5.99 is that most probably, if it's from one of the fast fashion stores, that this was, I'm saying something, produced in a 16-hour workday with like the possibility of going like twice to the restroom or so, something like that. Like really crazy things, right? What we heard about, everybody can there's a lot of like documentaries everybody can watch. So it's, that like shady side of fashion, which is like by
Yeah.
far not as glittery, glamorous, or like livable even, right? These are all things which go against our like values and like the mission we have here for sure. But it's not about, people not, I think, all the, because we know that all these big brands, like every brand basically, but all the big brands, they have really good marketing specialists
Okay.
put a lot of effort into, painting the I have to be very careful if I use the word. I'm not sure if illusion is the best word for it. Like painting the picture that, they're caring about, right? They want you to see the product and only the product, right? And then basically you focus on, well, it's actually an interesting point because if you're fast fashion, you cannot really say about quality. So you don't just say about quality. You just say like, oh, it's glittery, it's glamorous, and I don't know, like something like that, right? The obvious things, right?
Trendy
Yes.
ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is the kind of thing, right? Because they don't want you to look to the conditions under which this garment has been made,
Because
right?
everybody knows the trend that what the main trend is because they're gonna be using for a few time, like a few weeks or a month, and then it's gonna be changed because everybody knows we make it according to the trend. And when the trend change, they're gonna wear that.
And the
So
trend changes twice a week, so that's like a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, exactly. I was actually reading the same thing. It was like that trends change 2 times in every week, and I
Yeah.
believe
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But it's all never let's never forget, like this is all human made, right? So there are people who like even like they would make up like micro trends, which are actually not a trend. But if you can pinpoint it, and that's the thing, I think there's actually misuse going on a lot. If you make up any kind of micro trend, but you can pinpoint it, for example, to a celebrity, which like by coincidence wore something similar or something like that, right? You just need it to go viral, and then you have a micro trend, right? You could make that up easily, right?
so
Anyways, so if we talk about like the way things are being manufactured and like the conditions for people behind the t-shirt, right? So people who
yes.
go on the field, on a cotton field, and get the cotton, then like they're like, if you talk about supply chain transparency from level 1 to 6, then you know there is always playing. And we're like in Europe, I don't know about the US so much, but in Europe it's like, so there are like there's legislation on the way, but it all takes a lot of time, as we know. But anyways, we want to be on the side to like help and get this legislation going. There's a lot on the way, which, for example, the digital product passport. I don't know if you've heard of that,
So,
but that's going to be in place like in 2030.
okay.
And basically, the DPP is like should give you more transparency on where this garment has been produced and under which conditions, right? So basically, it's a QR code for it should be in every garment from 2030 onwards. And basically, it should tell you the supplier, the sub-supplier, and all of this kind of stuff, right? So, and basically, the idea behind is to broaden the accountability for brands. So, what I mean by that, right now, it's like, so for example, as you and me, we both know, and a lot of other people know, that there is, different organizations from time to time. I would take our prominent example because I know that this is happening. Usually accuse Zara of child labor, or Inditex of child labor. So and then they would argue that, so there's, usually a lot of press involved and a lot of, rumor, and, people talk about it, and that's good that we still talk about it. But why do you never hear anything like really afterwards? Like, where's the aftermath? So there is no real aftermath for Inditex. You know why?
Why?
So the legislation level we're on right now is that basically the brands, so Inditex, is accountable for doing business with their suppliers on level 1. Okay. So in the supply chain transparency, level 1 is basically the last step before you and me could go buy the t-shirt. So that means like the label you have here in the back. Okay. If you sew that in, this kind of thing here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
See that? No. If you sew that in, for example, in Italy, you could, that's a whole different other story, but you could then say it's made in Italy, even if 95% was manufactured in Bangladesh. Okay. So that's a different problem we have. But okay, so that's one. So they only take accountability. So wait a second, I have to rephrase. They have to only take accountability for level 1. Okay. So on level one, how big are the chances that you would employ a 13-year-old girl doing that? They are zero, because nobody would do that, right? That would be stupid. So the biggest portion of where you have greenwashing and shady business like child labor or like no workers' rights and so on, they happen from level 2 to 6, and I would say 2 to 4 the most. Okay. So these are people who like hardly, and 6, by the way, coming again, 6 is the person going on the fields and taking the cotton, right?
Yeah.
So in between that, so this legislation in Europe with the DPP should basically increase transparency and get brands to like be accountable for level 2 at least, or maybe even 3. And yet I know it still will take some time to be passed on and da 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 da. But it's still something. So, and yeah, so to answer your question, so why? So Zara has, or Inditex has a agreement with their supplier to be held responsible for level 1. Within this agreement, and this is made public a few times already, there is one number or one paragraph which basically says that if the supplier has kind of like so much to do, they can outsource certain tasks. But here's the thing, it's the norm to outsource certain tasks. And this is why and how child labor is still possible on all of these things I manufacture. But this is also the same reason why Inditex can always say, we don't have that, right? We would never support, because technically in their agreement they say we are against child labor. We don't, we want to pay our workers, we pay minimum wage and da da da. Another story that minimum wage is bullshit, we have to pay living wage, but that's just a side note, right? But this is how it's just legal for them to be okay, right? Because they still comply with the rules we have right now, but the rules we have right now, they're just really weak. So that's why, you can accuse them every time. And there is a lot of press and everything, what I said. And it's good, at least we have that. But there is no real big like fee or anything, they would ever have to pay because they still comply with the rules. Does it make any sense? Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah. So if we think
It's
in that case about ethical manufacturing, for me it would always mean that, and I said that kind of like it would always mean like living wage, right? And as we both know, living wage is like at least twice the amount of minimum wage, because nobody really can live off minimum wage. So that would be that, right? For me, it's always, if I think about ethically manufactured things, I think about like the people. Maybe that, that's a personal idea or like a personal point of view for sure. But for me, it's I think about the person sitting there, taking the time and effort, doing the craft and putting off, and saying that here's a t-shirt you can actually wear, right? So I'm thinking about that person, and that person, if that's a normal job, and that person should be making should be earning something of which she or he can, just make a normal living, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So
So,
yeah, so this is my definition of, if you
no,
want to say.
exactly. I totally agree with you. You explained it very well. And that's the thing, because even the fast fashion brand says that we're paying the minimum wages. First of all, as you said, we don't have to pay the minimum, we have to pay for the living wages, which is twice of the amount at least of the minimum. And then even though when they say we're having ethical um production or anything like that, which is not, they're having child laborers, in the third world countries who are gonna helping, because the factories pay less to them, and it makes factories more profit in that too, because I think everybody's involved in this game,
Yes.
so it's like that. But I believe the consumers or the customers, who are the heroes in our story, can play the role, supporting the brands and their ethical standards by demanding the transparency by the fast fashion brands, or supporting the local artisans or the sustainable fashion brands. So
They have
that's how we can contribute, because
to.
even we go one by one, that's not gonna make any difference. I mean, that does, but it's gonna take a lot of time. But if you
No, no, wait a second. I would even say you won't. So the industry won't, with all of the people you mentioned,
yeah,
and you clearly have a point, they all thrive within it, right? Because they maximize profits. Okay, they maximize their margin. That's the one thing they don't want to give up on, right? So,
yes,
and why? So there's only one, so there is one driver, which is legislation, which takes a lot of time, but you still have to have it. And, we're working on that.
yeah,
But the other thing, which is it's a bigger driver, and there's actually a bigger power in there, lies with the consumers. The industry won't change itself because you would have to give them a reason why they would have to change. If I was Nike and you told me that, you only take nylon, acrylic, whatever have you, and my margin, as I know it, is like 520, I'm saying something, 520% on the $100 leggings I produce, and you ask me nicely that, I should invest in some sea cell or something like that, more sustainable, better for the skin, no toxic, da da da. I think it's a good story, but why would I do that? I would do you a favor. So why would I do that? I do it like there is no, you're asking me to give up, I'm saying something, 200% of my margin. I would still make 300% of the product. Okay. I could still be fine. Like, I'm fine. Like, but how am I going to talk about like this, or to justify it within, of course, like the conglomerate, Nike, the stakeholders, what have you? That's very complicated. I get that. But like, why would I do that? Because I love the planet or what? You have to give me a reason why I have to do that. And for big companies like these, um, revenue matters. And it's the only thing that matters. And they would not, just because they like you or me, give up 200% of their leggings. Because you know what? Like, everybody likes the brand Nike and they like to buy in. And I get that. They like to buy in the feeling, the emotions, and everything. But this has to come from the consumer. The consumer can have depression and say, like, I'm not buying this shitty Nike leggings anymore, right? I stink when I do sports. That's the
right.
thing. If people hate it when they do sports, like, and they stink with Adidas and, Lululemons of the world, there could be some change. But as long as, we run for the brand, and then of course there you can say, okay, usually sports clothes, they're made to last and da da da. But I get that. Usually you have them for a long time. But the other thing is like the toxic chemicals in there and the micro shedding. Okay. So that's a different problem. If you have C cell, it's not 100% C cell, but of course it's like better for your skin, and there's a lot of other benefits what it has.
About
But
that.
that's the thing, right? The industry won't change. You have to give them good arguments. And the biggest good argument you can have is that the consumer they don't accept the status quo anymore for, I don't know, for whatever kind of reason, right?
No,
Why?
yeah, easy. Whatever you just mentioned, I totally believe all the fashion brands, the fast fashion brand knows that. Even they have
They
more
do.
information than us.
They
But
do.
they're just waiting for, for I think because the government to make sanctions. But in the meantime, what we could do, we need to take action as a consumer, as a
Yeah.
customer of their brands, as you mentioned, because we're wearing the clothes and we're stinks, and some other things, because we're wearing a plastic and it hurts our body and all that. If we're aware of that, and we should be taking action as soon as possible, that's gonna make a difference. Because they're not gonna, wake up one day, Nike and Adidas, and say, oh, we just stop all the production, we're moving to the sustainable, ethical practices to support the people and the lovely planet. No, it's gonna not gonna work like that, because they're here to make a business. They're here to make profits.
Yep.
That's the main thing that matters to them. So as a consumer, we need to make a choice to go to them, not to go to them, or buy from. Even as we spoke before, I don't even recommend to buy more. We have enough. But if you
Yes.
want to buy, so go with some where a brand that shows transparency with the production and the sustainability matters, so you can believe that and you can buy it. Of course, nobody can be 100% sustainable and ethical. There is some things that gonna left behind, but still, as much as we can, we need to be working on this, and should be aware and taking action. That's the only way we can resolve this issue as soon as possible. I believe so.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly.
I was just trying to find it. I have to do that later, but I have a good story for you. Have you ever heard of, there was a couple of years ago, I think
Okay.
not too long ago, there was fake news about Adidas having a new co-CEO. Did you hear about that?
No.
It's a really cool story. Co-CEO.
Story that you mentioned, I never heard of that. More
Ah,
like,
there is a film about it. I will try to find it
okay,
later. We can like put it in the caption and for people to watch it. It's a really cool film.
good.
It's short film. So there was basically fake news about Adidas having a co-CEO from, I'm not so sure about if that, I think it was Bangladesh. So basically a former worker employed at Adidas there, now being the co-CEO because they want to work on their image. And then, they would go and that it was something, there was an event they did at Berlin Fashion Week a few years ago. They basically invited everybody from the scene and said, like, it's Adidas and da da da. We want to present a new strategy because before that they have been also under scrutiny of I think during corona, that I think that was the point. During corona they never really paid, like, what is it, like, I think 1 million or something. So basically, corona happened, sales fell, as you and me know. Nobody was really shopping, like, not, at least not normally, for sports clothes and so anymore. So basically Adidas put a stop on saying, like, we cannot sell these, right? And but people were produced, so they produced it still. So, and these workers are still waiting for, I think it's roughly 1 million euros or something like that. And I think until today they haven't actually paid it. So, but basically this was an awareness campaign of fake news. So they invited a lot of people from the fashion scene and so on. They had this Berlin fashion show, and what it was actually a little crazy because they basically said, like, yeah, it's a new era and we want to make well, but everybody really believed in, there were a lot of articles, and Adidas themselves took a while to understand if this what was going on. So everybody was congratulating Adidas for the shift. And this person, so it was actually really funny. But then they went to the fashion show and obviously went viral on social media and so on. The fashion show was like, they had, if I would describe it, so basically they wanted to have very disturbing images for people. So people were like, it was kind of like an artsy scene and like actors in the, so normal models, but like they have, for example, one was covered like in blood and they have like the stripes. But they had the stripes like everywhere, the three stripes. They had upcycled pieces from, oh, I don't know, like the garment workers there back in Bangladesh. And then they had like signs from the, and they had like slogans, like something free the whatever, like on the back and something. And people were like literally really shocked, right? And they were like, okay, okay,
Feels like a
we
movie.
get the message, okay, but it's like a little drastic, right? Everybody was sitting there, like the music was good and so on, but everybody was like, okay, we I don't know, is this happening? Or like, and then and then afterwards, basically there was this yeah, like Bangladeshi person came out, like really good spoken English, and says like, yeah, I'm the new co-CEO, and this is like the new series we have. It's a new chapter for Adidas and so on. Everybody applauded. And then like, I think after the fashion show on that day, they basically, so Adidas made it. Adidas had to, that was the funny thing. Everybody believed in it. Adidas had to release a statement that they are not associated with this and they don't stand for this, but they will work on paying the workers, which they never did, by the way. I'm really ashamed of that since it's a German brand. But it got a lot of attention, really, and I found it like it was drastic, but it was really cool. And it was like there was a couple of designers who really worked on upcycling old pieces and putting, like, with the garment workers actually. They went to Bangladesh, they met people, and so it was a lot of effort actually
Yeah.
for just fake news. But anyways, yeah, it's a good.
That's yeah, that sounds like a movie to me. Wow,
Yeah.
they made the whole fake scenario. God,
Yeah, everybody loved it.
that's crazy. Maybe Aditya should, take that as an advantage and fire. I mean, hire a person and just let him speak
I
out.
mean, they had the chance. As far as I know, they didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, they got
Not
a good
sure.
Has to, make their image more better in the
And
system.
to be honest, like what is 1 million for them?
When you're making tens of billions of dollars in profits, you cannot pay 1 million.
Oh,
Come
I
on.
think you could pay that from the petty cash. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, if we talk about the stories or mention these, it's gonna be take the whole days, even months, maybe,
Yeah,
because
but it's another story about, if you ask me what ethically manufacturing,
Mhm,
that's another very prominent example for me, which came to mind. So it's the people who are, behind this. So
exactly. But as we mentioned before, I think we have to take the action, and we should be asking the questions to the brand. Even nowadays, we can just, go on Yelp, we can go on Twitter, just use a hashtag, mention the brand, and ask questions.
Reddit,
So easy.
Reddit is very
Yeah,
prominent.
Reddit, exactly. So we should be, take the advantage of those platforms and
Yeah.
try to get into the business and ask the question, what is going on? How can we make it better?
Sometimes actually it's not always so. I mean, here's the thing. So it would be very important to get answers to these questions, but sometimes to get something started, it's actually even more important to just ask the question because a lot of people would, I think, ask you, rightfully so, like, why would I do that? Who would actually care about, an answer to me, right? I am just one single normal person. But here's the thing, right? If there are people, and that's why like community is like really the most important because you're first of all not alone anymore. And second of all, there are a lot of people. The more people who ask that question, you build up like quiet power, right? You
Exactly.
can be
Yeah.
more and more loud the more bigger the community grows. And it's basically if everybody of us understood, and I think a lot of people underestimate their purchasing power, right, as an individual, if people understood that better, they would understand that they are the ones who are literally driving everything, right? It's easily said, and I think sometimes if you're alone, you're just like, why would I post that comment? Why would I ask? I will never get a question. But here's the thing, like it takes a couple of people to start this conversation, and conversation starters are sometimes unanswered. That doesn't mean that it doesn't lead anywhere, right?
Exactly.
Maybe other people come like your comment because they feel understood. Then they know, oh, I'm not alone. I don't know. Like sometimes these things start community building, right? Without having the exact answer to this, but this is how I think sometimes we have to be like these little steps we see, they're sometimes a lot bigger in reality. And especially they can be threatening, they can be perceived as threatening to brands for sure, right?
But yeah, that's how we gonna raise a question, and that's how we're gonna raise awareness. That's what actually I'm
Yeah.
doing today, Sheen. Even I go to the Yelp, Reddit, and Twitter. Not we haven't started Twitter yet, but we're gonna be doing it soon. I go into the communities where they're asking questions, and we try to support them. We try to join the conversation. We try to question the brands. What are their practices? How then how they're gonna be better, or whatever the conversation is going on over there. So we'll be jumping in, join them, and support to what's going on. Maybe even if everybody thinks one, if they put down one comment, at the end of the day we can get a lot, and it's gonna make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the power of the social media that we have, and we should be using at least for something good
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah. Spreading the conversation, getting a conversation started, keeping it there. Like, it's I think this famous example when, somebody said like, yeah, but it's just one cheap t-shirt, right? If 2 billion people said the same thing, it's a lot of cheap t-shirts, right? Yeah, but I think sometimes, it's as it is with usually I feel that way sometimes, these big numbers, they're kind of like either like intimidate or they're like I don't know what to do with them. They're just really big. Okay. If you tell me 100 million or 1 billion, it's just like really big. I don't have a different feeling of 100 million. Okay. You know what I mean? Like it's sometimes difficult for people to, and then think like, And I understand that when they come back to themselves, like, what does it do in my life? Do I have like, what can I do? And I think this is the way a lot of people feel, like, against this big system about 100 million revenue of, I don't know, this kind of brand. Well, here's it. And I think it's very normal to feel intimidated sometimes. It
Exactly.
is.
It does. Yeah, I think that was a great conversation on this topic about the ethical production and all that. So, but yeah, these are the unspoken truths that, I
Yeah, for
mean,
sure.
still we do have, and I would say it's overrated, not overrated, but underrated, because a lot of people do not talk about it or do not mention, but we talking about this will make a difference.
Yeah, we're just trying to, I think one of our main things here is to just like at least put them there in a room with all the other elephants and let people think about what they want to do with these elephants, right? And with some of them, maybe they resonate, at best. Some of them maybe make you think about something. That's also very good, right? And some of them may be irrelevant for, his or her life. And that's okay too, right? Because sustainability itself, and also like if we talk about ethical production, like sustainability is a concept which should like serve you, right? Because this is when you buy into, when it serves your life. It's not something radical like um I don't know, it's like not like a it's not a concept which has like these kind of like five rules you have to adhere to, and if not, you're out of the game, right? So there are a lot of different kind of like situations where you can be where you can see like impact of yourself. You can make an impact. It's actually easy to make an impact. It doesn't have to, you're not a not sustainable person if you don't live in the woods and plant trees every day, right? So it has to be, partly into be able to be integrated into your life, into your daily life. So
Yeah, that's right. I totally agree. Uh, yeah, it was a great conversation in this topic.
it was very nice to see you. Very
Of
happy to
course,
be
likewise.
back on your feet.
No, thank you, Easy. I do appreciate for all your prayers and well wishes.
Yeah,
I got better, I think.
good, good, yeah, good.
No,
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate our time for today too, and hopefully we'll be no, not hopefully, God willing, will be next 2 weeks. We'll be
Ja,
discussing the other topics. We can
gonna
make
make
it
some
more better.
progress.
Thank you so much. Whatever you have.
Danke.
Have a
Danke.
good day then. Okay, take care.